Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 34th episode of
I think so.
the Horse Geeks podcast. I'm Kirsten Nelsen. With me is Deb Romero. And today's topic is, and I forgot that our tagline, looking at horses and riders from the inside out. That's the purpose of the podcast, our intention. And today's topic is actually coming from a comment on YouTube. Last time we talked about, and I use this phrase a lot, don't walk over dollars to pick up pennies. So today's topic is about walking over dollars to pick up pennies. And what does that mean?
Yeah, really. Am
What
I
do I
doing
mean by
that?
that? Because I love that phrase. It's
Crap.
very clear that you take a big step over a dollar bill on the sidewalk in order to go pick up a penny. And what that really means is we often we're either missing, overlooking something of value, like in the context of horse and rider. Maybe our horse offers us something that's
Mhm.
really of value, but we have a different plan in our head. So we tell them, no, don't do that. Because we have our own agenda in our head and we sort
Mm.
of miss something of significant value or an unexpected opportunity with our horses in order to kind of stick to the plan, stick to the training regime, stick to the theory, all of those things, right? So we'll kind of look at the question on the YouTube comment was, what are the dollars and what are the pennies? And I thought, what a great question. Like, I love that.
I do
So,
too.
yeah, and it's probably true. Like, it made me think of your work with Alexander Technique that so often people think, oh, I can't make time to get to the gym, so I'm not going to work on my body because I only
Oh,
work on my body at the gym. And you always come up with
oh.
a million opportunities throughout the whole
Mhm.
day that are little gold nuggets of how we could improve our balance, our use, our kind of more mechanically advantageous
Yeah, I call it
coordination
pick a
of our
place.
body. You call it pick a place? What does that mean?
Pick a place. Like one of my clients, his pick a place is walking from his computer to the bathroom
Oh,
just to check. Yeah, just to check in. My pick a place, because I do it so frequently, is walking from the house to the barn.
and so what do you do when you pick a place? What does that
I
mean?
am I'm just checking in. Like, is my AO joint available? Am I connecting my pelvis to my torso? What are my legs doing? How are my feet? Gosh, you would think it would take me an hour to get to the barn, right?
No, but it's very fast, I find, because I'll do that all the
Yeah.
time when I'm riding, especially if I'm trying to make an adjustment to my habit of how I ride. I'll find every 3 or 4 seconds, I can just have a really quick check-in, like
Mhm.
an internal inventory, and go, oh,
Mhm.
because if I'm not bringing my consciousness internally, my body goes back to default
Yeah,
really
big time.
fast. Yeah.
And I think I want to make it clear that it's a check-in. It it's not about fixing anything. It's just about being very clear about what is going on.
Yeah, because if we want to change, if we want to improve our skills as a rider, or we want to improve our horse's movement, or we just want to improve our own mechanical function doing dishes
Mhm.
and walking around,
Mhm.
the first part of changing a habit is becoming aware. Because almost by definition, habits become unconscious. They're at the subconscious level. And it's literally like a default setting in the computer. So the only way to change it is to first notice that that's how I do what I do.
Yeah,
So
and
in a,
it's like having a riding teacher, instructor, or some other eyes to, having hands on, or you might not know what you don't know about your own use. So,
right. So when an instructor brings it to your awareness, you have to still kind of plug it in and go, am I doing what I normally do again? Or am
mhm.
I pausing and redirecting my body towards a different use?
It's kind of like when I say to myself, am I being me or is that my mother talking? Who is that? It's like, I got to be careful.
Yes. Yes. So what are some other, like, where do you see or how do you experience walking over little unexpected opportunities or golden moments in order to pick up a penny? So walking over dollars to pick up pennies, where do you find that happens? What would be a dollar? What would be a penny?
I think it's when I get the tunnel vision of focusing on the end product and not how I'm getting there. For instance, when you're on a time frame, say, somebody's coming over or whatever, am I being a real super doer and trying to get everything done? Or am I paying attention while I'm doing it? Say when I'm feeding or picking up a bale of hay or, catching my horse. What am I bringing to the equation in
Right.
my own
So
self?
after taking some Alexander technique lessons myself, my dollar during the day was, can I move with ease and efficiency, not rushing? And then the penny was, okay, get the chore list done. Go to all your appointments, do all the things you need to do.
Right.
Those were all the pennies. But the dollar or the value was, could I do it in a way where I feel at ease inside my own skin rather than stepping over that dollar to go get all these things done with more
Right.
tension or more anxiety or something that's not as healthy for my body.
Yeah, I think that's real important, the ease, because the central nervous system, and I'm sure it's like that in the horse, the central nervous system, when you're using yourself to your best ability, recognizes it. And, your breath is better, you're psychologically better. So it's not just looking at the actual mechanics of it all, but the psychophysical of it all.
Yeah. And that was just a good reminder for me to take, micro pauses and go, if the thing of value, the golden opportunity today is to habituate movement that makes me feel peaceful and easy, then that's the dollar. Everything else I have to do during the day that I already know how to do is the penny. And that's
Right.
like, for me, it came up a lot. I started using this phrase. I say it to almost everybody I give a lunging lesson to, right? Lunging is like, it's probably the oldest horse training method known to mankind, lunging. But when you say lunging, you could have 10 different definitions, or you could put 25 people out with a horse on a lunge line, and you would have 25 different varieties of lunging, right? And you can have lunging with supportive devices, without supportive devices.
Right.
You can do it in a halter, you can do it in a bridle. It's so I'll kind of break down some of the dollars and pennies related to lunging, because everybody lunges their horse at some point.
True.
Right. And so to me, the dollar value of lunging is in transitions, and the maintenance of gait is a penny. But most people who are lunging, some people are lunging to tire the horse out. So
I agree. I've been there, done that.
chasing the horse around, trying to get them tired. And then one day you meet a horse that they can do that for hours and never get tired. And you go, ooh, okay, it didn't work for that horse.
Or it even escalates more.
Oh, yeah. Then they pull the rope out of your hand and game over.
Yeah, got it.
So most people think of lunging like the first order of business, or the first thing on agenda is for the horse to maintain gait, maintain direction. And I go, those to me are the pennies. Like, that's the easy result of the dollars to me on the lunge line. It's sort of practice time for the horse. Like to me, there's really nothing a horse can do wrong on the lunge line. And for a long time, instead of calling it lunging, I called it playing the scales. Like
Huh.
when you're learning the piano, you go up and down the scales with your fingers to develop sort of the muscle memory that you need for playing the different notes. And I thought that's kind of my idea of lunging is walk, trot, canter, trot, walk. You could even throw halt in there, but it's sort of practice time for the horse to just get a little handier with all three speeds on both directions. But there's no right or wrong speed. There's no right or wrong way for them to go about it. Because mechanically, transitions are where the horse has to use the most muscle control.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an energetic benefit. If I need to sort of help a horse find more energy, then upward transitions are going to build a little excitement. But if the horse is too excited, then allowing the horse to choose a downward transition helps calm them down.
I liked when you say allow, because that has more dollar value to me than demanding.
Way more dollar value. And we can get into the mechanics a little bit, but when we decide it's our job to tell the horse when to make the downward transition, particularly on a lunge line, the only way you can do that is to cut the motion.
Yeah.
Which is almost always going to put the horse in a posture where, worst case scenario, they push the spine down, the back down, the head goes up, and they prop with all their weight slamming on their front
jam
legs.
all their joints. Yeah.
Right. The best case scenario when we demand the downward transition is we maybe cut the movement gently, but they're more likely going to stop with too much weight on their front end and over contracting the back, the neck, and sort of not controlling their body weight. When a horse organizes its own body for the downward transition, they end up using the muscles that they use for the downward transition are half of what do the job to lift the back. And they develop more control. So we need equal parts balance and forward motion and control of forward motion. So if I look at developing a horse on the lunge line, I'm looking for equal measures of calmness and forward energy. I'm looking for equal measures of self-propelled forward and self-controlled forward. And transitions are the gold nuggets that help develop those two different energies or a blend of those two different energies. And the control over their balance is what they develop during the downward transition, particularly if they organize their own body to make a downward transition. They're going to do it in the most comfortable way that they know how, which means in the most correct mechanical way that they currently know how. So when I lunge a horse, my job is the upward transitions, but again, not in a hurry because I want them to organize to their best possible use in the upward transition. That's going to work on the pushing and the forward energy. And then whenever they choose a downward transition, I allow it because to me, that's a big fat dollar I get to pick up for their self-control over their forward motion and their balance. So a lot of times I'll see people's concept of lunging is you have to, how dare you break gait? Like that's just, oh my God, a cardinal sin that a horse can make on a lunge line, right? Is they choose to break gait. But if you look at what they do naturally, if they're hauling ass through the pasture, right? If they have enough room and if they're not overly excited, they'll canter, then they'll trot, then they'll walk, and it's sort of smooth. And if a horse loses their balance at a faster speed and starts to kind of contract to regain their balance, making a downward transition is a way that they can restore balance and then try the faster speed again. So again, if I put the penny, maintain gait, be obedient, as the primary objective of lunging, then what I see is I go, you can get the horse to do it. You have a whip, you have negative reinforcement, right? You can get the horse to maintain gait, but it's oftentimes at the expense of good balance. So that is the most used example I always have of walking over dollars to pick up pennies.
And I can get this vision of what the human is doing with their body.
Oh yeah, the
Chasing,
pushing, yeah,
the chasing and the pushing. And so
right.
that the human is actually out of their body, they're not
They're
paying
over
attention.
focused on the horse. They don't even
Exactly.
know, they don't even know what they're portraying in their side of the
Yeah,
nonverbal
wow.
communication. They're not even
That's
aware of
huge.
how they're being perceived by the horse, right? Sometimes we can look quite aggressive. So I go, you'll get maintenance of gait. That's easy to do, but you're going to wind up with maintenance of a crappy gait. So at a certain point, if the horse isn't allowed to make a downward transition in order to rebalance, then that's exactly precisely how we teach them to compensate in the faster speeds.
And I like
So,
that it's kind of giving them the power and the control to direct their own use, that they're figuring out, how do I do this downward transition or upward transition well? I
and
mean,
be
I'd like giving them that
comfortable.
opportunity. Yeah. So that they are thinking about it and it's not a demand from us at a certain place.
It's a respect for the innate intelligence of the horse to work with what they offer. And
I
those
like
are
that. Write
those
that
are
down.
those are always dollars to me, because whenever the horse makes a choice, it tells me how they're feeling, what they're thinking about, or if they're struggling to feel stable in the speed or the direction that I've asked them to try. I'm not asking them to do it. That's obedience.
Oh, I like that. So
I'm
it's
asking,
kind of like going back a couple of podcasts ago about asking instead of demanding,
yeah,
just asking the question.
yes, yes. And so if we're using lunging to tire a horse out, I go, I heard, I think it was Buck Brannaman one time at a clinic. He said that horse that was super excited, really, fearful, out of control. He goes, that horse could use a long walk. Like that horse needs to break a sweat over its tail at the walk. And what he meant by that is exactly what I found. If I need a horse to calm down, then on the lunge line, if they choose the upward transition and I didn't ask for it, that's like letting them vent. I go,
Uh-huh.
okay, knock yourself out. I'll be here when you get done, as long as it's safe for the horse to do that, right? If it's not safe, I have to maybe reel them in, shut them down, redo it. But if it's safe and they want to trot and canter or even haul ass on the end of a lunge line for a little bit, I just go, okay, obviously you have some pent up energy and anxiety that you need to move through. So I allow it. But when they finally decide that they can walk, that to me is where I'm reinforcing calmness. I'm not
Yeah.
making them calm by chasing them around and making them tired. That only, it can have the reverse effect of building up anxiety and making them stronger.
Mhm.
So the lunging takes
It
longer
takes
and
longer and
longer and
longer. Why
longer.
doesn't this horse ever walk?
I know. But I find if I let them go as fast as they want, it's funny. I think the horse that took the longest to choose the walk was maybe between 45 minutes and an hour. That was pretty extreme. But I go, most horses, it takes about 10 minutes and they're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. I can just see it when they come down off of that high. It's like they start blinking and their brain goes, what were you thinking?
Exactly. Exactly. Because as long as they're in the sympathetic nervous system of fight and flight, they're not really learning, they're reacting.
Mhm.
And so you can make them physically out of breath and get a little acquiescence for that moment. But over time, you're teaching them lunging equals fear. So then you
Mm.
end up having lunging problems.
Then you get drug.
You get drug around, or they panic on the lunge line, or you
Mhm.
can't do it in certain locations because they'll get away from you. But you want the lunging in the horse's mind to equal relaxation, right? So horses that are pretty excited, once they choose the downward transition, they've spent the energy they needed to spend internally. And when they choose to walk, and some of them will only walk for a few strides and then take off again.
Mhm.
But once they know it's allowed, that they can come down, they're going to choose it whenever they feel a little tired. And most importantly, the big fat dollar of letting them choose the downward transitions is they're going to organize their body into better balance during the downward transition. And it's in the downward transition that actually requires more engagement than the upward transition. So they have to engage the hindquarters more to make a downward transition or go down a hill compared to pushing into an upward transition or pushing up a hill. And so many people just lose their minds when the horse chooses to break gait. And I'm like, that's a big fat dollar you could pick up right there. Is
Yes.
every downward transition your horse chooses. And you don't have to leave them in the slower speed. The transition itself is the dollar.
Mhm.
So then there's horses that you ask for the trot, they give you 2 measly strides, and then they break to walk, right? But you still have the same value in the transition. So I go, horses that don't go forward, I just ask for the upward transition more often, even if they break after a couple of strides. And what I found is you're in the land of 10,000 transitions when horses don't want to go forward. But I go, remember way back when we talk about Newton's laws of motion, I go, the
Yes.
law of inertia is a very reliable principle of physics when it comes to horses that don't want to go forward. Because horses that don't want to go forward are either uncomfortable going forward. So the transition work helps that by letting them break, ask for another, letting them break, ask for another upward. So they're either uncomfortable or they're highly conservative with their energy.